two,
One.
monkey bars. Triple IQ. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Thicc Butter podcast. My name is Alex,
My name is Jesse
aka Thicc.
and Butter.
And welcome to another podcast review. How's everything going with you, Jesse?
At first, I gave a pause for the listeners to reply if they felt like it. I'm doing
Oh
good.
no,
too.
I wasn't. I don't care about the listener.
Listener. I'm doing good. How are you, Alex?
I'm pretty good. I am. I should have been tea before this. I've been doing walks all day. I'm exhausted. The movie last night that we're going to talk about
Today.
really just pulled me out of life in general. We're going to do a spoiler review, right? We're going to spoil it, I guess.
We always spoil it.
We're
going to
do
it this time.
I think we're going to warn you when we spoil things, because I know people haven't seen this. A lot of people haven't seen this yet. And I think we should try to do our best, especially in the beginning, just to like maybe not spoil the movie, just to kind of like,
well,
people haven't seen it yet, because this isn't a new movie. This isn't Doctor Strange 2, where everybody and their grandma saw it, opening weekend. So we'll warn you when we spoil something. But this is for the new Alex Garland film, Men. Men. Produced by A24, because obviously, and this is a film, like I said, directed by Alex Garland, who, if you don't know who Alex Garland is, he is a filmmaker who is behind films like Ex Machina, Annihilation. He wrote a really underrated sci-fi movie called Sunshine, and a really underrated action movie called Dread. He's a really, I like his films a lot. I mean, I
he's
like
been pumping
every
out
film that he's either written or directed.
Really good stuff. Really good stuff.
A really, I think Ex Machina I would consider to be a modern sci-fi classic, I would say. I think a lot of people who like sci-fi movies and like genre films like that 100% know what Ex Machina is. And if you
it's an early A24 film too, isn't it?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah, it was super early. So it was one of the first A24 movies to kind of like take notice in like the mainstream. It was nominated for Academy Awards and like won Best Visual Effects, which at the time was like one of the coolest things ever, because it was an indie film that was up against the Spider-Mans of the world and the Avengers of the world, and the small independent film won for Best Visual Effects, deservedly so, because it's seamless. You see that movie, it's completely seamless.
Freaking dope. It's so dope.
Annihilation was a movie that I didn't like it as much, but I still really, really enjoyed Annihilation. And I still enjoy it to this day. I've seen it a few times. That film is super weird. That was
I really like Annihilation. I really like Annihilation a lot.
I mean, it's a really, really interesting film. And that was another movie that made a stir when it came out. I think that's more of a cult film, I think. In the grand scheme of things, I think Ex Machina is still his, like, people know him for this. But, I was excited to see this just because I like his other two movies, and yeah, hell yeah. And, I guess we'll talk about the expectations going into this, because there was a lot of talk when the trailer came out of how kind of, weird and odd this movie like seemed to be, right? It's a
Mm-hmm.
movie called Men, and the film stars Jesse Buckley, and basically, when you see the trailer, it's about a woman who has gone through a traumatic experience, goes to a cottage, and basically gets stalked by men. And so that's what the trailer leads you to believe. And the movie being called Men, I mean, I thought the movie looked really cool just visually, but there was part of me that was like, okay, what are we doing here?
Right.
Like you're calling this Men, and it's like a horror movie, it's named by a man. So there was like a weird. I think I was, anticipating it to like trust Alex Garland, but to make a good film, I don't think he was gonna make something that was like pandering, to leftist Twitter or something like that, But I was definitely apprehensive going into this,
Right.
for
Right. It's
sure.
just
So I was like, what is this gonna be? I
yeah.
really just didn't know what to expect or like what it was gonna be at all.
Right, because it had that ambiguous sort of disturbing quality where it was purposely sort of like keeping all the information from you. You knew there was a lot more to it than what you could
For
see
sure,
from the
yeah, yeah,
trailer, but there was that fear that you're talking about where it had ran the risk of being overly political and sort of a way of
yeah,
distracting from it. And that was like, is this going to be preachy in a way,
yeah,
or
yeah,
is
yeah,
this going to
absolutely,
be sort of like a meditation on the modern problems?
yeah.
Which I think we both agree it turned out to be the latter
I
because
think
Alex
so.
Garland
Yeah,
pulled
this
through.
is a really interesting film. We talked last night after I saw it because I was just like, couldn't believe what I saw. I guess the first opening to this is, I'm not kidding. I really sat there. This is maybe, I haven't felt this way about like a movie in a long time, where truly walking out of the theater like stunned, or I wouldn't say stunned and like, oh wow, what an amazing film, because like that wasn't the feeling I had. More stunned and like, what the fuck did I just see?
Right. Right.
And that's an exciting feeling to me. I love that feeling. But I mean, this movie's very divisive. If you look on Letterboxd, and if you look at some reviews of this movie, it's almost 50-50. It's very
Mm-hmm.
divided. And there's people, YouTubers or film critics that I follow, it runs the gamut. It's pretty crazy. You either love this movie
Interesting.
or you just
Yeah.
completely were like, what the hell, and just hated it. And
Yeah.
I
That makes
purposely
sense.
didn't look deeply into that. I was just kind of looking at the scores in the letterbox, like ratings. This has an average of 3, which is pretty low.
Yeah.
Considering like
That is kind of
his
low.
other two films are 3.6 and 3.8 or something,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
averages. So
I'm
like,
not totally surprised by that though, for
not at
what you
all,
just
and we
said.
will and
Yeah.
we will get into that. And
Yeah.
there's parts of the movie that like, this is going to be a fascinating discussion, because
Mm-hmm.
this is a really interesting movie. And if anything, if this movie's going to do anything, this is the only thing I'll say about the movie landscape as a whole, because I feel like we talk about that way too much, um, and kind of distract ourselves from the movie sometimes that we're talking about. But this is the only thing I'll say, is that this movie will spark discussion. And
Mm-hmm.
in this world of movies are spoon fed to you, you know what you're seeing, the don't look ups, the Doctor Stranges, you know, this is what you need to be feeling, and this is what you should be getting out of it. See you later. Forget about it in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
This movie will spark discussion. Either like it or hate it. I admire movies that go for something and that will literally make people discuss it after they see it. You know,
Hard
um,
agree.
and that's admirable from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I really liked this movie. I thought that this movie was really good. I do have some like questions almost. I think you do too, and like
Yeah.
some apprehensions, and like I think for me it's more story based. Some of the things about the story that I was like, I don't know. I've only seen this once, and so I don't know if this was a. There's elements of it where I'm like, is this a problem, or is this,
Yeah.
or is there something more to it that I'm missing? You know, I'd love to see this again. I might have to wait a while to fucking see this again because this
Yeah.
was a wild experience. Um, but I will see it again, and so maybe the issues that I have with the story of it and some of the decisions that the characters make, I think maybe will just make more sense, or I'll get more out of it the second time I see it. But
Yeah. I
that's
feel
kind of like my opening broad thing. I thought this movie was pretty fucking awesome.
yeah. I was when I had a great theater experience. This is one of
Me too.
my favorite theater experiences that I've had in recent memory. And
Me
after I
too.
saw this, I've forgotten that it's been a while since I've seen like just an art film, like a
Yeah.
like solid, definitely just an art film, not just elements of art film. Like this
Yeah.
is an art
Sure.
film.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like those movies a lot. I like art
Yeah.
films a lot. And I liked how visceral it was watching it, where that's kind of the emotion I think a lot of people don't really like, where
Yeah. I think this is a horror movie. I don't know if you mentioned this is a horror film.
right. So there's that viscerality to it, and then there's sort of like the weird abstract art stuff going on that
Yeah.
adds another dimension of sort of visceral, like get under your skin
Uh
type of
huh.
thing, which we talked about in the Northman. It's sort of
Yeah.
those kinds of feelings where it's like it's forcing you to feel things with the shots and stuff, which I think is really cool and great, and is flexing the potential of what cinema could be,
Yeah.
more so than the extravagance of something like a Marvel film, which has its place. We always say that
Yeah.
Marvel has its place, but I prefer things like Men and what they're trying to sort of push and do with the cinematic landscape. And I thought that it was just I thought it addressed issues really well in a certain way, but
Uh
not in
huh.
like a political sense by being literally saying this is bad and you
Yeah.
should think this way about it, but by taking a very modern character who has a very modern problem and
Yeah.
dissecting it and exploring it in this really interesting metaphorical way that I
Yeah.
thought had a
Right.
lot of I just thought it had a lot of power to it, and it was really cool on top of that,
Yeah,
which I really
I think
like.
I agree with you. I think so. I think I agree. The
Yeah.
thing that I am like struggling with a little bit, like as I've like thought about it, is so what this film does is what you're getting at is these it's kind of addressing these issues of I don't even like masculinity, I guess we'd say,
Hmm.
and the societal norms, gender norms, and things like that. And very subtly and almost to me anyway, and this is the first time doing it, in a kind of a cheeky way. And in kind of a like it's more it's not overt. You know what I mean? It's not
Hmm.
like it's not preaching. It's not a really addressing these issues like kind of head on. It's kind of letting the audience and letting the film almost like have these themes kind of come out of it in some way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. It's
Yeah.
not like Alex Garland went to make this movie about like talking about um toxic masculinity. It didn't seem like that to me. It
No,
didn't
I
seem
agree.
like that um it was a movie that was overtly trying to do that. And with that being said, I think that's not a criticism of my eyes, but I can see somebody having a criticism of that this film doesn't go as deep as I think it should go.
Right.
And personally, I thought it was a really unique and cool way to do it. And I would totally agree if you did find this movie like shallow in that way, because it kind of is. And then there's the deepness to me comes a little bit like more on the side of like the themes of grief and guilt and like
Right.
things like that that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really
but the
interesting
whole
point.
men aspect to it, and I think I need to see it again to really like have my full opinion on it. But because you know, to me, I'm kind of like this is like a first reaction, to a movie
Mhm.
like this, then first reaction,
Yeah,
like,
seriously.
because there are things about this that we can talk about, obviously, with the ending and some of the imagery that's in this movie that is absolutely insane, that can evoke a lot of these feelings. But I think I'm not gonna really know if there's more to this, like what he's trying to say almost about because titling it then is interesting, right? And I
Mhm.
still haven't really fully understood why it's called them, like
Mhm.
why them, and like I have an idea, I have like a loose idea, but I think it's not as clear, which I think is interesting, when I can see somebody having a criticism that like what the fuck was the point of that, and why is
Yeah.
this called them, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because
Yeah.
it is a
Yeah.
little loose, you know.
Yeah,
So
that's a really it's a really good point. And there's a lot of things that I think there's sort of the takeaway of the problem with the ambiguity of it, which is sort of
yeah,
like feeling like you go through this uncomfortable journey and you sort of end in this no, like you don't know what happened, like or you feel like nothing really
yeah.
happened. That could be frustrating. Or like the
Or it's you feel like you understood what happened at the end, but it just wasn't satisfying. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Which I
Or
can totally see as well. Because this is a very simple movie. Like at the end
right,
of the day, like
right.
really simple. If you break down like what the arc of her character, it's like it's pretty, like, and that to me the ending is very the literal ending is very cheeky in that way. It's very like, which I liked, but
Yeah, and I think the simplicity of this movie is one of its strengths for me.
yeah, I can
And
agree with you.
I think that what this movie is at the end of the day is about, which the setup for this movie is that Jesse Buckley plays a character who is recovering from
Harper,
Harper, who is recovering from being in an abusive relationship with a
yes,
very violent and immature man,
manipulative man,
manipulative,
yeah,
that's the key word,
yeah.
man. And
Who,
spoiler,
yeah, spoilers.
plug your ears for a second,
Yeah,
commits suicide, threatens
yeah,
to she divorces him, tries to divorce him, and he commits suicide in revenge to make to
in front of her.
control her in front of her.
Yeah,
And so she's fucking traumatized by
right.
that, and she goes to a country
She's
house.
carrying with the guilt of she pushed him to kill himself,
Yeah.
which
And
is what manipulative assholes do.
if you have anyone tell you that if you break up with them, I'll kill myself, then that person, you're in danger. You should get out.
Yeah, you
That's
should
a
call the cops. Yeah,
get out.
yeah,
You're not
yeah,
safe. It's not a
yeah,
good relationship.
yeah.
But after that, then she starts getting stalked by this man, this version of the
Uh-huh.
same man
Yeah,
who seems to be there's one actor who plays all the men in this
yes, what's
town.
his name? Because he is, I'm gonna tell you right now, this is one of the most amazing performances I've seen in a horror movie in a long time.
I thought, yeah, I thought his
This might go
performance
down
was
as
so
a
good.
iconic performance. Rory Kinnear, is that how you say it?
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he
is
was excellent.
unbelievable in this
He
movie.
was excellent.
Yeah.
But I think the simple idea, it gets really crazy after that, but the simple idea is
Yeah.
about processing those themes of dealing with the trauma of an abusive relationship, but not just like the feeling of it, but dealing with how the manipulation, even if you know that it's manipulation and that it's crazy and the craziness that comes with that,
Sure.
it's about dealing with that affecting the way that you think about yourself.
Yeah.
Because even though she knows it's not her fault that he died, it's still, she's been conditioned and it's
Yeah.
stuck
Right.
with her. It's still
Right.
haunting her. And that's
Yeah.
what that to me is
Yeah. This
like,
movie really is about the only movie that I would really like that I could think of right now that would compare to this, like thematically speaking, is a movie
Hmm.
called Antichrist that is directed by Lars von
Mm-hmm.
Trier. This is a very similar movie about a couple in that case that go through a traumatic experience and go to a cabin to like heal themselves, and crazy surreal stuff happens. And but I think the deeper connection to me is like both films to me are about this idea of haunting, and the idea of like what will haunt you and how to get over this fear of guilt, and of um and yeah, and I think that's the main thing that I think that this movie is tackling.
Yeah.
Um, and I think on that respect, I think it does a really good job. I think it's really like cool and interesting. Um, and yeah, I mean, so I guess we'll just like I kind of want to discuss like um kind of the look. I also just like love the look of this movie. I thought it looked great. I thought like Alex Garland has a really cool look for a lot of his stuff. Even his, I didn't love this, but his show Debs that was
Yeah.
on FX. I thought that look. I love the way that his things look, and it's a
Yeah.
very like particular look.
Yeah. He has
Um,
cool style.
yeah, it's a cool style, and I think this movie like um had just a really awesome color palette to it. It's like there's also a lot of weird things about nature that I haven't really pieced together. That's one of the like big things that I was getting off of with all these kind of detours that the film will take
Hmm.
very quickly to show us loss and to show us like the forest and like all these things to, and of course like the spoiler, the connection to the the man being reincarnated or by some nature,
Yeah. Yeah.
he turns into a tree guy at the end. There's some which I have like the idea that there's no right or wrong answer. It's like I said at the beginning, that's open to discussion, and we can discuss that what our share ideas and like what that means.
Yeah.
But that's what this movie does. It really wants you to share ideas, and open interpretation to what you think the movie means and what it like is trying to say,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but cinematography is great. I thought Jesse Buckley and Roy Kinnear were God. I mean, Jesse Buckley is like um
She's really,
incredible
really
actress. I
amazing.
absolutely
Yeah.
love
She's really
her.
amazing.
And like I said, I think this Rory Kinnear guy. I mean, I legit think like this will go down as one of the like most iconic horror movie antagonists. Like he is that unique to me in this movie. Like it's not just um it's a really remarkable performance. I didn't know it was the same guy. I mean, you could attest this when I called you last night. I did not know. I legit was like, and that's kind of part of the really one of the coolest things to me about this movie because Jesse Buckley doesn't know. Harper doesn't really realize it, until the end. And I didn't notice it. And it does this really interesting thing where um it doesn't make it like overt. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
just this creepy thing, that really adds to the atmosphere of the movie that they're similar, that they're all similar looking. And
Yeah.
the way that Rory Kinnear plays it is seriously like I did not know. I'm not kidding. I mean, like I literally was like, when you told me, I was like, oh, but
Oh,
like it all clicked. I was like, oh my God.
I
And I kind
know.
of had like at the end, like that makes way more sense to like what was happening at the end. But yeah, I mean like it's a remarkable
Yeah,
performance.
that was a really interesting quality because I remember that's what really got me excited about this film because I saw the trailer a couple of times and it was the
Yeah.
last couple of times that I saw the trailer that I was like, this is the same actor
Yeah, I
that's
didn't
playing
notice
all of
that.
these. And so
I
going
don't know how I
in,
didn't notice that.
I think it's a really cool thing about that movie because
Yeah,
he really does a good job of
they all
subverting it.
feel distinct
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah, right. He
He
does such a
plays
good
like
job.
four versions of the. So he plays the Jeffrey, the
Homeowner.
Airbnb,
Yeah.
owner,
Yeah.
and then he plays the cop, right?
Yep.
Then he
And
plays this really weird
the
like
vicar.
kid, yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
vicar.
Oh,
Then he
yeah, he has
plays this,
the Aphex twinned kid.
yeah, that's yeah, and so he looks super. Which that the kid was like the first like, why does he look weird? Like
Yeah.
there's something off about him, and that kind of like that's a well, go ahead. I know you're continue what you're saying, but
Yeah. Well, no,
um,
that was that it's just that whole idea of
yeah,
them of it being sort of like it's something that's apparent like once you notice it, but it's like beneath the
yeah,
surface
it
and you're
doesn't
kind of
make
like
it does the film never like makes a point that it is the same person. You know what I
right,
mean?
right. And it's not that because a lot of times when there's a decision like that, it's a big spectacle part
Of
of the
course,
movie.
yeah, right,
And I thought it was creepier that
for
it
sure,
wasn't
yeah.
the
It's
case, you
creating
know.
a vibe,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which I also thought more on like the vibe stuff. I loved the music of this
Oh,
movie. I
yeah,
thought it kicked serious ass.
I agree.
I thought that it was everything that we have been talking about in scores lately. Is that it adds a lot to the movie, obviously, but it's a unique score. I'm pretty sure it's like a lot of it is choral, and a lot of it is um voices.
Hmm.
And there's something like that's unique. It was just a unique quality. And there's this recurring um melody, if you see the trailer, you know what I'm talking about, but this recurring, almost like chant and melody that is recurring throughout the film that Jesse Buckley's character, you know,
Sinks down the tunnel.
sings down the tunnel, and which kind of triggers her. You can kind of do that moment is like that triggering, the series of events after. The film kind of, now that I think about it, does a really, really interesting job of kind of like alluding to something coming. Like there's this one of my favorite shots in the movie is when she walks up to the dark tunnel and the camera is like behind her and we push in until she's looking into a completely black void,
Hmm.
um, which is totally
I really
symbolic.
like that shot. Yeah.
It invokes so much, obviously, of what this movie is about. Um, but it was also, this alluding to something, right? This alluding to like something darker, which the film goes way dark and way crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Another sort of
A
technical
lot of
thing.
cool visual stuff like that.
Yeah. But I was really impressed by how he blended so many interesting sort of genre tropes. I don't know if you could
Yeah,
really say them
yeah,
tropes, but it's for one, it's sort of like a return to the A24 sort of weird horror genre
yeah,
or
yeah,
intelligent
yeah,
horror,
right.
if you will.
Elevated horror, Jesse.
Elevated horror, yeah. Oh my god. But more specifically, I thought it was really cool that this is like a slasher films at
Yeah,
times. It's
totally.
that
Yeah, yeah,
it's also that home invasion type of slasher
yeah.
film.
And a
But
psychological horror film at the
but
same
it's
time.
also completely not that, and also it's
Completely whacked out
totally
too.
own
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah,
Which I thought was really really added to it, where it felt
yeah.
like he wanted to keep it in a way that other elevated horror films. This is more genre
For
film like
genre. Yeah, you're right.
than I would
Totally.
call
Yeah,
other weirder horror films, and I
right.
liked that about it a
Oh, I
lot. I
love
thought that
that.
was
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
totally was thinking that too. But when the shit hits the fan towards the end, Um, yeah, it's a whole amazing slasher movie.
Yeah.
And what it does with that is it adds this kind of psychological, surreal quality to it. It's like a surreal, whacked out, whole amazing movie at the end.
Yeah.
And this is another criticism that I can totally see that someone could say that I would maybe agree with if I see it again. this movie fucking changes on a dime the tone
Hmm.
and the genre almost. Like because the first half of the movie is very creepy. You know, it's setting up something, but it's more like a meditation on her like grief, you know, and guilt and trying to enjoy life again. There's this great scene when she goes on a walk, you know, before she goes to the tunnel and it starts raining and she kind of looks up and starts to, you know, enjoy nature and starts to like smile and kind of enjoy life, you know, enjoying the world around her. And like the first half kind of like is setting up that you really don't know what the fuck is going on. Like
Hmm.
you're kind of like because it sets up the old guy in the yard, the naked old dude. Was the first time I
Yeah.
see him, like that's hilarious. Like he just walks out butt naked. But progressively, what I thought was so interesting about that specific character, the naked guy. Does he play the naked guy too?
Yeah. Oh
He
yeah.
does. Oh, geez, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not notice that.
I'm pretty
Um,
sure. I could be totally wrong, but I'm like pretty much
yeah.
90% certain.
But like, is that character just progressively more like disarming, you know, on purpose. Because in the first,
Yeah.
you assume that he's just like a homeless, you know, like drifter, you know, like just like lost. But as he keeps showing up, it just progress that image of him naked, just standing
Yeah.
there, just progressively more disturbing. And by the end, you're like horrified, you know, of that. And I thought that was like such a genius way of like taking an image, you know, and like, you know, through context, making it more creepy and creepy. It's the same kind of image of the old man standing there with the same pose and everything, but with the context, it just makes it more and more and more disturbing. And obviously,
Yeah.
until, you know, he goes trying to break into the house and things like that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, just kind of adds more to this like eeriness and this vibe and this like uncanniness that a lot of the movie like tackles, especially with the same actor playing everybody. You know, there's this uncanny nature that is really really cool. You
Yeah,
know,
I like that. I like that vibe of it, which is sort of the uncanniness I think is like the a similar kind of Shining uncanniness
yeah,
where
yeah,
it's not like physical horror, it's I won't say metaphysical, it's that it's uncanny horror
yeah.
is the best word
You
way
don't
to
know what you're
describe
looking
it.
at.
You don't know what you're looking at, you don't
Yeah,
really understand why you're so scared, but it is like
right.
really like deeply and primordially scary, I
Oh
would
yeah,
say.
for
And I think
sure.
that that's the type of thing that like grows in creepiness and how much it bothers you, which is like one of the
Yeah,
things that I liked about why the scene of her yelling down the tunnel and seeing that man is a fantastic like epitome of horror to me, you know,
yeah,
because it's based on real human fears, you know, someone
of course.
coming to
Yeah,
hurt you in a
right.
scary dark tunnel. But there's also that factor of the way that he shot it where it's more than just a man coming to get you and you don't know what that more is,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
more and it's really scary. And I
It's the
thought that
uncanny.
was
It's um, you don't know what it is. That was kind of like yeah, totally. I loved that scene. I
yeah.
loved the tunnel scene. I thought that was you know, they showed that in the trailer for a reason. You know, it's definitely um kind of the pinnacle of it, other than like the ending, which is you know what people are going to be talking about.
Yeah.
But that scene is really great. Um, and yeah, I mean like when the kind of the themes of because I think we kind of like I think we really got down to the nitty gritty of like her like the guilt and the grief and like what this movie ultimately becomes about. It's about a character healing. It's about a character almost facing her own fears and facing her fears
Yeah.
through this metaphysical, surreal uh, horror movie, you know, horror lens, and that's what you know facing trauma and facing fear feels like, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is not a this is not a new thing. Like this is movies have you know done this before. Especially with characters like you know, a David Lynch movie, for example,
Hmm.
or a film like The Babadook, which is very similar in the way of like a character facing grief and guilt and trauma and using like this horror, this Babadook figure is a manifestation of her depression and guilt and
Right.
stuff like that, which is a very common thing in horror movies to do something like this. Um, because great horror movies, they deal with themes that are inherently scary, right? That's what was so funny about like this elevated horror like term because it's so stupid, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like okay, is the Exorcist elevated horror?
Right.
Because I mean that movie's about like the idea of like elevated horror is really like it has more themes or it has like deeper. What are you talking about?
Right.
Like
Right.
like it's not a slasher movie, but you can get a lot out of a Halloween, for example. And maybe kind of maybe not on the surface, but you can, or The Exorcist, But like this idea of elevated horror is just so silly.
Yeah.
Like this movie, like what horror movies do, good ones, a Cronenberg, for example, is Cronenberg elevated horror? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
On definition, he 100% is. But Cronenberg, I think is a prime example of taking like deep rooted things that are horrifying to just people in general, right? The uncanny, guilt, grief, like overcoming these things and telling and trying to like understand these emotions through horror movies
Yeah.
because it's terrifying, you know? And like that's what's so brilliant about doing Cronenberg's work, and that's what Alex Garland does here. But what he does that's unique and what a lot of people are talking about and what's so divisive is that man element. Is that like um what he's trying to say specifically about masculinity, which is like, there's scenes in this movie that are clear, right? Of like, this is what I'm saying, especially with the vicar character, which I really did like that scene, but I can totally see someone rolling their eyes and being like,
Right.
okay,
That's the
you
most
know,
that's the most like preachy scene in the
right.
movie, which I thought
Which
that
is
scene
funny because it's a preacher.
right. That is funny. But
Yeah,
I
like,
thought
hey, I don't know, maybe that obviously is purposeful. That there might be something to that. I'm not kidding.
but yeah, right. I mean, seriously, but that scene, I think that's a good thing to identify as being perhaps the most problematic. But I
Yeah.
really thought that was a powerful scene.
Yeah,
I thought it really
I don't find,
worked.
it's not that, like, I don't know. I haven't looked at the discussion, so I don't really know what people are saying. I should have done that, but I don't know what some of these reviews are saying. And, like, um, I don't know if it's problematic. Is that it's shallow? It's kind of like,
Right.
it's not going as deep. I would assume that that's the criticism, but maybe people are saying it's problematic, and I'm too stupid to really see
Yeah.
why. But
No, no,
uh,
I think you're
and also,
I
I could
think
disagree with that if I want to. But
yeah, I think it's problematic because it's shallow. Like that's the reason why it's
sure, yeah,
problematic.
yeah.
I think you're right about that.
But I feel like
And
the intentions are there, right?
yeah, I do.
There's good intentions.
I mean, yeah, you're getting me thinking about this because one of the things, well, one of the factors I'm talking, what you just mentioned, is talking about how this is very similar to a lot of other sort of elevated horror, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term, which wish to
It's
God
so
we had
dumb. Let's
one.
just stop saying that. Let's just
Yeah.
stop.
But compared to other films that are like this, then I was just thinking about like why is this something new? Why does this feel fresh to me? Because it
Yeah.
really does feel fresh, even though it is sort of like Babadook, witch territory,
Also, like,
grief
some of
movies.
the imagery in this movie, you've never seen anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's another reason why. It's like some of the crazy imagery that's at the end of this movie. Like, I don't think you'll ever see something like that again. You
Yeah.
know?
And I think the other thing that's cool about this for me, it's it's like it's one of the things that was so unique and strong and powerful about sort of the uniqueness of it, and also on this topic of its divisive
Yeah.
quality about being criticizing masculinity,
Right.
is I think it's really interesting because it's taking things that we're familiar with, and to me what's cool is the modernizing of it. It's a
Mhm.
new modern deeper look at it that's more
Yeah.
complex than a lot of stuff than I've seen before. And I think that what a lot of this film is sort of like bringing what we've learned about horror films in terms of psychology to a slasher genre movie, because
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the themes of this movie, like this idea of men, is iconically what slashy movies are.
Of
uh,
course. Yeah.
the
Right.
idea, like slasher movies in all film studies class, is saying it's just a man trying to rape a woman. That's what
Right.
slasher movies are,
Yeah.
in a meta, like in
Very.
that kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
sense.
Right. Right. Right.
And so this movie is just taking that to, like, just learning from those messages, and instead of doing is taking it more to that psychological level,
Yeah.
and sort of and getting into murkier, even more disturbing territory to me, which
Yeah.
I think is what's so novel about this, is that it's a modern inflection and improvement, I think,
Yeah.
of themes and genre that we are already familiar with, like very
Yeah.
familiar with, but it's fresh, it's modern, it's new.
Yeah. That's actually a really good point. I really like that point. I don't know if like. Yeah. I mean, like. Yeah. I totally. I think that that's a really like interesting point about like. 'Cause I never really thought about like. You're right. It is like taking the almost like the slasher movie trope and almost like you're right, like going on. I think it's attempting. I don't know if it gets there. Like I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
it get. I don't know if it's like transcends. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like slasher movies. I think it attempts to do that. Like I think it's attempting to. I think you're.
Yeah, I
I think
think
you hit
that's
the.
fair.
I think you hit the nail on the fucking head of what Alex Garland like was going for. Like I
Yeah.
think that he was going for this like he wanted to add his own kind of like metaphysical, metaphorical twist that he does in his movies, but like through a slasher genre, but updating these problematic themes of slasher films and
Yeah.
kind of like going deeper with that. Going like and that is really fascinating. But I would love to see if he named this movie different. What if this movie was like called like I don't know, Harper? Would
Yeah.
we have these discuss like you know what I mean? So naming it
Yeah.
then is really bold. Like it's very bold. Um and I would love to know because there's obviously like he wants you to think about these the movie's called Men. I mean he wants you to
Yeah.
think about these certain things clearly. So
It's a very yeah, you're right. It's such a intense title. It really like
yeah.
makes you feel things, like just from hearing it. And it's, I would say that, like,
It
I'm in
did
like a
spark a
similar.
really great TikTok meme where people were reacting to the trailer and
Uh-huh.
like no what you wouldn't it would be like women obviously and it would be like they watch the trailer and like watch the whole thing and have no emotion like whatsoever just like and then when the men came up like the title they went ah! Like they were just so scared. Right. But you're right.
uh
Yeah, it's a super bold title.
Yeah, and I would say I'm in a very similar murky territory as what you're describing with it. Like, I just
Yeah.
can't, like, thematically I can't put it together, but I will say that it's one of those titles that when I hear it, it really fits for me. Is that
Yeah.
how it is for you? Like, it really fits for me.
I don't know yet. Really like fits in terms of like for
Like
the
in that,
movie.
like a like that gut feeling of like, I would describe it as feeling
I mean like
like Die Hard, which has like also has that symbolic relevance, but it's not
hard.
like, but like you know how like Die
You know, I
Hard.
never thought about how crazy the title Die Hard is.
Isn't it weird though? It's
Yeah,
weird,
it's
but it
super
works
weird.
so
Yeah, yeah,
well.
yeah. It
But
does, yeah.
you're just like, yeah, that's cool. Die Hard. I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I'm like 50-50 on it.
Yeah.
Because I know why he called it that. Like I think I do. You know, I think
Right.
there's obviously like something here. But on one hand, I'm like, does the movie warrant that title? I don't know. I don't know if it
Yeah.
warrants like this is you know what I mean? And maybe like I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of crazy shit that we will get. I think we should get into the ending of this
Yeah.
movie because it really is like the first two acts of this movie are very. It's really simple. We basically talk about them. Like we're
Yeah.
basically she is and I could maybe like talk about a little bit of nitpicky like things that I thought were kind of silly. I didn't love how Harper stayed there. First of all, she should have left way earlier. Like when the first guy came and like got arrested by the cops, she should have been like, "I'm gonna leave," because that
Yeah.
was weird. And like I don't know if I buy her friend who, and I didn't love that subplot either, that she keeps calling her friend on FaceTime and like there's like a I don't know, I thought it was just kind of like
Yeah,
boring.
it wasn't the strongest thing in the world.
No, it
I
was just kind of
agree.
boring because the rhythm of the movie would be like weird thing would happen, and then she'd call her, and then weird thing would happen, and she'd call her, and then just like got progressively weirder. And like I didn't really love the rhythm of like her like being like I gotta get out of this, and then see something weirder, and then going I gotta go. You know, like
Yeah.
she did that like three times or something,
Yeah.
which I thought was like corny. You know, I thought that was ridiculous. Like, I just don't, I didn't buy that this character. She's smarter than that. She wouldn't do
The
that.
only reason that those scenes, I 100% agree with that. And I kind of like, I was so in with the movie that I didn't even think about that, but
Yeah.
that's a great criticism because it's true. It's just not that strong.
No.
But the thing I did like, the one fact about the prop of the phone was the interference and seeing
Yeah,
the
that was
man's
cool.
face. That was creepy. Good
Yeah, that was
visual,
cool.
but not real.
But
Again,
again,
the
though, that's
phone.
another weird, like, thing about this movie. Like, what's happening?
Right.
So, that's like something that I can see someone having a criticism with. I don't really care if it's a movie, but if you're more into like I'm sorry, I don't do this. That was kind of rude, but more of like the logic of it. Like I
yeah.
don't really like I don't care about that's the last thing I kind of care about is like logic in movies. Like I
Yeah.
just don't I don't pay attention to that. But in this way, like, okay, if this is like what is this real that's happening? Like because like when her friend arrives, blood is everywhere. Like it seems like it happened. Like this guy, spoiler, gave birth 8 times and to a grown man 8 times. You know, the aftermath shows that, right? Which is
yeah.
kind of weird. First of all, I mean, I'm that's fine if that's real. I don't care, but there's a part of the movie that makes it seem like that it's like a surreal thing that's happening. Like it's not really happening. And then
Yeah.
these interference in the technology that's going on, it's like alien shit. It's like what? And there is a really strange shot that I still just don't understand when she like looks up at the cosmos and there's like a rift in space. Remember that? I was like,
Yeah.
so
What?
like, what the hell was I supposed to get out of that? But like, so I don't know. I mean, there's
Well,
some
this is
really kind of weird logical things going on, but
yeah, this is kind of the thing that I've been chewing on a little bit
which I can
too.
see someone having a criticism of. You know what I mean?
And this is the frustrating thing about movies like this,
Yes.
and especially in terms
Yeah.
of how the ending was. It's like, did
Yeah.
that happen? Did that not happen? I want to know. And it's like I get kind of frustrated with that argument because it's like it's just not what the movie's trying to do. Those it's just not what it necessarily really cares about trying to do. And
Right.
I'm into what it's trying to do, which is hard to articulate what it's trying to do.
For me, it's
But
all about the rules of the movie. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
Where
right,
if you
right.
set up like that this happens in the world, I believe you, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
And so the thing about this movie that I'm kind of conflicted about is that it's very much the type of film that could be like all in her head, which is such
that's
like
retarded. I mean,
a
that's stupid. That's
uh
so dumb.
I really get I'm really bored of that like
All in
perspective
her
of it
head.
all in her head. And it's
Really a
like
prick. He
there's
wakes up
some
from a coma.
right.
The fuck you talking about?
But like
There is, I will say, there is a really to that point. I don't think it's all in her head. There is this really, really bizarre sequence that when she gets in the car, the hey, I don't know if this is a problem with like the screening or the movie. I don't know, but so she runs to the car, and we see 3 different versions of
Yep.
her running.
Yeah.
The hell's that about? What did you make of that?
Right. And that's the kind of stuff that like I've been like sort of like processing on,
Which
because the
I don't
last
processing in terms of like, did that work, or did that like, was that just like
that's
confusing almost?
yes.
You
Yeah. So
know,
that's the questions I
did
have
it
for
actually
myself,
translate to what
because
was going on? You know,
well, after we have weird shit that starts happening with like the phone and the text messages where it's like alien sort of supernatural ability type of stuff.
right?
And especially after it gets dark and she starts seeing like the men outside who like will appear and then disappear, like shit gets weird. And then it starts really getting weird after the naked tree man blows his fairy dust in her face, the dandelion stuff, and it goes into
That's
her mouth.
legit what happens. The
Yeah.
naked tree man blows fairy dust in her face.
And it's that's a situation
Right. And we talked a
where
little bit about that last night, like
right, and
off the
that's
podcast. Yeah.
and now we're in the territory where we can make an excuse where she's like in some kind of
Right.
like altered state,
That's true.
fair, fair. That's
No,
like
I
all
think
that's
that's true. I think the movie overtly tells you that that's happening.
yeah. And I would say for my experience of like once it gets really weird and strange, like
Yeah.
I was in it and it hit me right. I would say there's a lot of like movies that are like this where like that's basically what I go off of. It's like, did it hit me right at the end, or did it just feel kind of off? And so for me, this hit right for me, all in all the right places.
No, I
even
would agree
when
with you.
so like in that scene when she's walking out, or in the ending scene where she okay, the other thing I want to mention is that this all gets extra complicated when you have her friend come in too, because when you have someone else
Like,
who's
so
outside of the trippy experience,
to get the, you know what I mean? Because they allude to that, like, she didn't get the text or something, or she like, because like when she sends the location, one of the men like responds
right,
through the
right, and
text, and you're like, so did she get the net? Like, it's kind of blurry a little bit, you know?
yeah, and I feel like, and her sort of being, she's sort of like the stable thing of like, well, she's real, like the women in the film are like, well, that's a real person, that
Yeah,
they seem real. All the men are like, I don't know what you are, I don't know if you're
I
here
don't
or
know
not.
what the fuck is going on. Yeah, right.
But
And
like
there
the
could
women,
be something interesting to what you just said, you know?
right.
Wow.
And so her being there at the ending puts like the whole abstractness of it into question for me, I think, in a pleasant way as opposed to a frustrating way, where it makes it so it's
No, I think you're right. Yeah. I wasn't frustrated by it. I was just more like I was with it. Like I understood like the purpose of it. Like I think it would be really bad if like the care like it didn't, her transformation or her arc didn't work. That would just be bad, right? That would just be like, that was just, and there is part of this movie that I do think, and I think you'll agree with me, that there is some shock value part of this movie, which I think I know a lot of people could be really averse to, right? Like,
yes,
seeing something so shocking as
the
a
scene
mangina, like birthing grown men 5 times, like
in a row,
over and over
five
and over
times in a
again.
row.
Someone can look at that. That is, I'm going to say this, one of the craziest images I have ever seen in a fucking movie. I'm completely serious.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy on so many levels. The idea, first of all, is insane. The fact that he pulled it off is crazy. Third thing, he got money to do this movie. Like, dude, that was CGI. Like, that cost. There are people out
a
there
lot of people
in California that shot dailies of a mangina and a grown man crawling out of a mangina over and over again. That's incredible. That's amazing that this is in movie theaters.
Yeah.
This is insane. I think we need to really break down how insane that image is.
Let's
doesn't happen in theatrical released movies. Like, That's insanity. You
I
know,
really felt something similar to what you just said, along the lines of just how pleased I was by the novelty of that
it's
visual.
more of the novelty, and it's more of like the shock value doesn't bother me when it's like, and I didn't find that to be shock value. I don't, which part of it is obviously is it's supposed to disturb you,
Shock you.
shock
Yeah.
you, yeah. But I thought that there was more
Right.
interesting
And
dramatic things going on. But
and
I'm
that's
a fucking nerd. Think about like a normal horror movie audience member, dude. That's gonna be insane.
well, yeah, that's the
You
yeah, for
know
sure. Because for us, we're gathering information in sort of our weird
exactly. Right
and
when
the
you're people who go, and I think a lot of people who go see A24 movies specifically are looking for things like that. They're looking for the
absolutely.
thematic connections and what this means, you know, for the film as a whole. You know,
But
they're
if
not
you
really sitting back and thinking that I'm watching a guy give birth to them 5 times. You know, like it's just that. You know, to
yeah,
them, it's not more, which
and people might
totally
go,
understand.
and
You
people
know,
who aren't into that type of stuff might go in just being confused and then
totally.
disturbed, and like just like out of left field just have that scene happen,
Yeah.
and it's really
I mean,
very
there are people.
distressing.
There are people that are really. I mean, this movie's getting tons of walkouts. I mean, people are getting
Yeah.
up and walking out of the theater, which I get. You know,
Yeah,
I totally understand that.
I had a man behind me who was like, middle-aged gentleman,
Yeah,
and he was by himself, and I was watching it with him and have a good time. Like, didn't have any reactions at
right.
all. And when that scene happened, I like glanced over at him. It was like, because like I was like compressing in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
seat because I
yeah,
was like, this is intense and crazy.
yeah.
And he's just like dead face, like just watching this
Really?
happen. It's like, what is happening? Am I in the
No,
Twilight
dude.
Zone?
Well, I told you last night. I was sitting next to two guys my age, and they were
Uh-huh.
obviously huge horror fans. And when that happened, you know, same thing, like no reaction throughout the whole thing. And when that happened, we all looked at each other. We were all like, "What is
What?
happening?" Like I've never had like that. Like, and then like after the movie ended, we like talked after. And we were like, and like that is beautiful. You know, it's like I said earlier, it sparks discussion. You know,
Yeah.
it like we bullshit to you. You know, you like, but at least it made you say that was bullshit. You know, and here's why this is bullshit. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
um, so like
And I would
that
say,
way, I love that. You know, that
and I,
it's so bold enough to even fucking go for it, man. You know, fucking goes for it.
right. And I think that on this topic of discussing about the shock value of it, the shock value factor is like it's so different because of how it's such a good like set piece to sort of finish off this
Yes,
escalating conflict to the
yeah.
movie. It's such a good conclusion to like go to this place that I could not predict that to come ever.
No, I
Ever.
did predict halfway through the scene that it was going to transform into her husband. I
Yeah.
did predict that, but um,
Right. But did that make it
no, no, no,
curious?
no, no, not at all.
Was
I
that
was
kind of
glad
like,
when that happened.
yeah, see, yeah. So that's the
I
kind
was
of
like,
that's
because by the third time a Mankind appeared, I was like, I was loving it, but I was deeply like, please have this pay off, please, please.
yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, please just let this be just this absurd, fucking crazy thing that just doesn't go anywhere. You know, it's just this insane imagery to have insane imagery, but it
yeah.
actually goes somewhere. You know, it goes somewhere.
And the thing that's hard, but
So I was
I
like, oh,
so agree with
I had
that.
like a deep sigh of relief. I was like, oh my god, thank God. You know,
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And I thought it was so satisfying for me too. But at the same time, I know audience members who would go in there and have the
absolutely,
exact opposite
yeah,
experience with
oh
that.
yeah,
Um,
and
which
I
is
100% get
perplexing,
that.
but
Well, like
I
I've seen
understand it.
so many movies, and this disturbed me. This shocked me. This is very rare. You know, like I've seen so many, you know, horror movies and body horror movies and stuff like that. When something like comes out and it's truly shocking, like I said earlier, like it's truly like I don't know what to do with myself right now. Like
Yeah.
I feel like I shouldn't be watching this. You know?
Yeah. 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 And so it's also the film that is maybe the most I think the way you described it, which I liked, is the idea of toxic masculinity
Oh yeah, I think what did I
begets
say? I said
toxic
something last
masculinity.
night.
It's just about it's perpetuating itself, you know.
Yeah,
Toxic masculine men create more toxic masculine.
that's kind of the feeling I got. Yeah,
Yeah.
watching it.
And I think that repetition is I think that that's a strong way to think about it. And another thing, okay, so another aspect that I want to bring into that film, holding that sort of thought of like toxic
Yeah,
masculinity
sure.
creating more toxic masculinity,
Yeah,
I also want to bring in this weird imagery, this mythological imagery and cosmic imagery that we
yes,
have,
yeah.
where part of me, so my question through the film, which it is that for me, this is, I think what this movie is about is her dealing with her abusive husband
Right.
who committed suicide, which
Yeah.
makes sense that it ends with her abusive husband coming out of the man
And
gina. It's
her
like cool.
literally him being, I believe I was so, I couldn't really, I think I understood, I heard what he said, but I was like, I was, my ears were ringing. I was like, whoa. And I think he said something like, I just want you to love me.
Yeah, that's all he said.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah. And
And there's this moment of comfort almost. There's this moment of like, I wouldn't say a sweet moment, but a moment of like peace between the two.
yeah, or at least she it's like, to me it seems like a lot one of those things where I feel like in abusive situations one of the first things that you have to do is understand like what was going on with the crazy person. So for
Absolutely.
her,
Yeah,
that was
right.
her like getting it
Her
and being able to move
understanding.
on and
Right.
be like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
which I thought it was actually beautiful, right?
yeah,
That's beautiful.
I love that. I think that's a
Yeah.
great way to like
That's a
basically end
good
the
point.
movie with.
Yeah, totally.
But my question with this film, which is not a problem, I would say, but it's a
Is
question I
what the
had.
fuck?
Yeah, right. But like the decision to use the same actor to be the
Yes.
monster is really interesting to me, especially when
Yeah.
you choose to make his face not be the face of the husband. Like it would make sense to
Right.
say to make the men
And
like be
like
her
they make it
husband.
clear that it is who's a different race, who's like,
It's
they make
very
it clear that it's
distinct.
very different.
And so why have make that decision? Which I'm glad he did because I love it.
Why specifically I don't
Why
know.
that guy? Like why that guy?
I mean, there
And
could be a lot of things. And this is like an issue that I think, again, like I was saying earlier, that someone could have with this movie, that it is
yeah.
too ambiguous. And like, I like can see that criticism. Like, if you think that this is just like, it's the idea of ideas being half baked. Like
Right.
I think what you just said, I don't know if there's an answer. I think like I have an idea, you know, but I feel like, to me, I don't know. Like, the thing that's weird about the art films and things like that is like, if I really wanted to, I could really, I have ideas of why it's the same person, but this is like the idea of like conspiracy theorists almost of like film and like how silly, like for some movies, like like people like came up with this whole conspiracy theory, and then they ask the director, and they're just like, "Oh, I
What?
just this is the only shirt that we had."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what
Absolutely.
I mean? So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of ways that you can look into it. I mean, our first like deep mega brain thought about it would be
yeah.
like, okay, if it's the same person, he could be making this interesting statement of like, um, how like kind of earlier to the birthing situation of like these men, these toxic men, these like problematic men, these assholes, you know, kind of they have a particular look, and they kind of form into one
hmm
another, and they're kind of perpetuating like their own behavior, like, which I got like really strongly, like you said earlier, with the Berlin stuff and that imagery of like of almost like men create toxic men,
hmm
or like this idea, or like having the same person be different characters, with the same face and stuff like that. Um, I don't know. I think it maybe kind of adds a similar layer to that, where it's like, um, I don't know. I feel like I'm not a. This is why,
Yeah.
like, this is another thing that's super weird about this movie that I know that I'm almost guarantee that someone has said. It is a weird, like, when you start going into things like that, right? The themes of that. It's weird that it's coming from a man, because I was about to say, because I'm not a woman, and nor is a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And so I was about to say, I'm not a woman. I don't know, like maybe like there is this when you're dating or you're out somewhere, like, I don't know. I'm not a woman, so I don't look at, men the same way, but there might be some kind of similar thing where she can almost piece out like who's an asshole, who's an asshole, who's an asshole. So there might be
Yeah.
some kind of thing that he's saying there. Again, though, kind of weird that it's coming from a man, though. It's like, and it's a man writing from a woman's perspective. And I'm not saying that that's like a problematic thing. I'm just saying, like, I think that, like, I can see that being a big issue,
Right.
that some people have with this movie when it comes in terms of like that part of it, the
Yeah.
thematic
Yeah.
man part of it, because it is blurry and it is strange,
Yeah, on
because
that point specifically, it's a very interesting point because it is like an interesting thing to try to digest because it's a complicated thing with storytelling because you have the capacity to you can make your main character be a bisexual frog.
you can
It
make
could
it
be,
exactly, you can do whatever you fucking want.
and as
And
long as
why
you
a
know who
woman
that
dealing with
is,
trauma, you know
yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah, so it's hard to because to me this was a very authentic representation of that. But like you,
Yeah.
I am also not a woman,
Yeah,
so
I know,
I
yeah,
can't have a say on that. However,
right.
I would take the gander that I would say a lot of women who are also into types of movies like this would have an authentic experience with that. That's
Sure.
what my hypothesis would be.
Yeah,
And
right.
I think a frustrating criticism with this movie that I can't necessarily dismiss would just be that it's inherently problematic that a man is telling this story.
No,
That
I don't think so. I just think that when you start talking more deeply, I think that's when it starts to get a little weird. Because
I
when you
agree.
start talking deeply about like, okay, these different obviously images and these metaphors that he's trying to say about masculinity, it gets a little blurry and weird because it's
Yeah.
like, okay, but like what are you really trying to say?
And I think to me I think that's like where the discussion, like the interesting
Yeah,
discussion starts to begin. And I think
exactly.
that
Yeah.
in my opinion I think this movie pushes that to a positive discussion along
No, I
those
think
lines
it
as
has good
opposed.
intentions. I think
Yeah.
it really does have good intentions. Yeah. But I'm someone that, I mean, this is a weird comparison, but it's kind of similar to the discussion that people are having about Kendrick Lamar's Auntie Diaries off of his new
Mm,
record,
yeah, that's an
where
interesting
this
comparison.
idea,
That's good.
which I think that song, while I love it, and I think it's a really good uh, song about, if you guys listen to it, it's a song about, Kendrick's trans uncle. And it's, he uses the F bomb, multiple times in the song, and there's been a lot of discussion about it. But the thing is about that song, it's very good intention. It has really good intention. Basically, he comes to a conclusion at the end of the song that if we could say the F word, we might as well let white people say the N word. I mean, that's so he's making the point of the song, like, we can't say this word anymore. But for some people, just saying the word, for queer people and people that have been called, I've never been called the F word in my life. I've never,
Hmm.
I'm not queer. So, like, but for people that are queer, the people that are, that have been called that, it's very triggering, you know? And
Yeah.
like, I understand if you do have the criticism of that song and hearing that, word, like, I get it. But what I don't get is like, I don't want you to say, I don't care if you're queer or whatever, but if you say that he is not has good intentions, you're lying to yourself. You're not reading what he's trying to say. He's trying to make a really good point, and it's not for queer people, you know. It's for people who are still dealing with. That's what the song is made for, you know. It's
Yeah.
not made for people that are already, you know, in the know, you know. And so, and also art can be painful, you know, sometimes, and you know, you're not going to like, not everything is going to. We live in this age, and Kendrick talked about this in the fucking album, where we're in this age in cancel culture, and you know, you say shit where it's automatically triggering, and like not really getting the nuance, or not really getting what the point is being said.
Yeah, that's
And
a
so there's a similar discussion here with them that we're kind of
yeah.
having, where, um, like we're not. I'm not really in a place to discuss the kind of the themes of the movie. And I don't even know if Alex Garland is really in the place to, and he doesn't. Like that's the weird thing about the movie. Is I think he knows that. I mean, he didn't go as deep, you know, as he could because he knows, you know, like he can't. You know what I mean? Like he's not a woman, you know. So
Yeah.
it's a
I think you'll
long-winded answer, but
no, but I think that's a really good comparison about like the anti-diaries. And my main things about this is that we're both people who are very left in what we support,
yeah,
and
absolutely,
are
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like it's not really a question to us of like, should we support trans people, should we support gay people?
No,
It's like that's not a debate, that's
no.
just what humans do. Like it's
I'm
a
gonna
given.
quote Kendrick again. I chose humanity over religion.
Yeah.
So,
And so, but like this question that you're bringing up to me is what gets to me, and where I feel involved and like I have a say in it, is on regards to what art is allowed to be, which is
yeah,
basically in terms of censorship. Like, what are people
yeah,
allowed to say in art? And I think anything should go, and I think you should be
yeah.
allowed.
I definitely agree with that. But I think like there is. I don't. I'm not saying that this movie is problematic in any
Yeah.
way. I just think that, and I'm not someone who like. There's some really snooty people who are left people that I'm seeing talking about Awkward Diaries in like the most cynical, snooty way possible, where like they recognize that he's trying to make a point, but it's still problematic. It's like, dude, give him a break. I mean, like, he's trying. Can you like respect somebody that's actually trying to like, and he's also like, I don't know, it's just disregarding background, it's disregarding like everything. Like, it's like this dude, he's trying. Like, can't you like accept that? Like, I don't understand, you know, the cynicism of that, you know. But um, no, I don't think that. I think you're right. I think you know, art is. I think anything can be put out there, you know. But I think for some people, I think it's you know, it's like the idea of subjecting me to like these half-baked ideas, right?
Right.
Which some people could say, because you pay money to go see a movie and you're being, you know, almost told, kind of, you know, like certain things. That's what I don't like about movies that feel more hand-fisted. I don't think that this does. I think the weird, I like, this is just, I'm playing devil's advocate. I think that this
Yeah,
is,
I hear you.
like, I think that this is interesting, and I think I wish it went a little deeper, you know? I would have been more interested, maybe a little more interested to see if, like, maybe there is something here, because I've only seen it once, you know? So, but, like, I can see someone really having the criticism of like, what the hell is the point of that?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, I didn't get anything out of that. You know, like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it
I know.
doesn't. It's ambiguous, and it might be too ambiguous for people. You
Yeah.
know, and so the illicit nature of this is really, I think, um, right. I get it. You know,
Yeah, and I think the reason for some of that division, well, there's two factors I'm thinking of. One is the culture that we live in right now, and that culture is
yeah,
very much about like this outside in sort of like
yeah,
of applying meaning towards things, and like this very like, to me, superficial way of
oh
saying
yeah,
what
yeah,
things are about, which is kind of like what our culture is, and that's very tied to our very split politics, I think. The
yeah,
other thing I think what people don't realize or forget about like art and stuff is how, when you're really making something that's really authentic, which to me this movie is a very authentic movie, the creator doesn't really have that much control of it, which sounds kind of
yeah,
weird. but shit like this has a way of making itself. And the creator, like Alex Garland, which I think a lot of his stuff is just kind of like this, is like, I have this thing and it's just going to go wherever it's going to go. And this is what happened with it. So to a certain, and that's the same thing with like Licorice Pizza, the criticism of that. Like they're like trying to vilify Paul Thomas Anderson. It's like, this is good discussion. Again, it's good discussion. We can consider this. I think it's important to talk about it, but like, you're missing, it's to me reducing the point of what this is. You know, you're trying to compress this, because what movies are to me, and in my opinion, I think you agree with me, is like, it's a reality in an hour and 30 minutes. It's a whole universe and a world built into that. And the director, if he does his job right, his or her job right, they remove themselves from that reality completely. They're just like a vessel for that kind of creation, which gets like, which I think that it gets into this territory of where it gets complicated when you're dissecting it, where it's frustrating. We have frustrating experiences when people's criticisms of this movie become overly political about it and sort of take like these meanings from it. It's just like, yeah, you can get that from this, but it's not what this world is, because this world is about Harper's dealing with this shit. That's what this world is about.
I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Like, I totally agree with all that. And I guess, like, the idea would be that, I really just think that this is just coming from naming the movie Men. Like, when you name the movie that, like, you're, like, think about it. Like, when you walk into a movie called Men, you're already like, okay, what is this? You know what I mean? Like, it's a weird title. And so, I wouldn't, I don't like, you know, I think the way that I think that's how people should watch movies. I think that is like, I don't think you should put any stake in any of the people that are making these movies. They're humans. They're human beings, you know? They're not perfect. No one's fucking perfect. That's why cancel culture is like insane. Like, the idea that, like, everyone is perfect. You can be, everything that you say in your life is, you have to be perfect. Like, it's like, dude, you know that's wrong, and you know that's insane. So what the fuck are we doing? And also, cancel culture like isn't really real. It's on the internet, and like these people that are canceled aren't really canceled. They're still working today. Louis C.K. is still selling out fucking theaters. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? But like, I think just the title of them, and like, it's opening it. It's almost like it's opening itself to discussion. You know what I mean? So
I do,
I think, like, I don't know if that was the right decision that Alex Garland made, like naming the movie then. Like, I don't know, but I think you're right. In this day and age, I think that's what's happening. Is that a lot of the discussion around this movie is like, um being colored by this, you know, insane divide of politics that we're in, and like, the dude, this hat, like where's pizza, like what you described, like, people want to just like, and fucking COVID, like, people want to like inject their politics into like everything. It's like, dude, this isn't political. COVID isn't political. Like, what are we fucking doing? Like, this is a virus that is affecting the fucking world. There's nothing political about this fucking thing. People are dying. No, let's fucking put masks on, you know, like a while ago. But like, it's the same idea. It's like, people are
I know.
like, that's why I'm not political in any fucking stretch of the imagination, because it's stupid. It's dumb. How about we're all humans? How about that? You know? Like, I don't know. That's why I don't engage in politics, because it's so silly. And like, we're really just, you know, and that's, I don't like it when it's put against movies, you know? But I will say, like, I think that this movie accidentally opened itself up to that discussion, you know?
And I mean, honestly, I think,
but I don't think it deserves, you know what I mean? I think it's just trying to be like a cool, fun, spooky, like, creepy horror movie that's about like guilt, and about like, you know, someone overcoming guilt. But this whole men angle is, I think, a little half baked. The more that we talk about it, I think it's a little like, I don't really know what that really means, and maybe I have to watch it again. But Because
I
I feel like
think
we've been trying to tiptoe around like what the thematic nature of it. Because I don't know. There's a lot, you know. There's a lot,
Well, yeah, and
a
I
lot.
think I think your point, I think you're making a really good point. Like by the decision of he's really it seems like Alex Garland really has an intention of putting this out there in a way to be discussed. It's not something
Oh,
that is like
absolutely.
an
Yeah, right.
element of it, but the name of it being men and the repetition of it.
Oh yeah.
And for me, I would say although it is really difficult to articulate, I don't feel like it's that half baked, but I
Yeah.
agree with you saying that it's half baked, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I can't really, I need to process it more about why I don't think that, but
Yeah.
because I don't really know why, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like I'm still like kind of like
Well,
in
I
this
mean, I think
ambiguous
like
place with
if
it.
I could speak for you,
Uh
I
huh.
think the way that you described like what you got out of the movie, which I think is brilliant, the whole slasher angle of like using these kind of like almost flipping the slasher movie on its head and like
Mm-hmm.
using these like problematic uh like things about slasher movies in the 80s and the 70s and things like that, and like taking it as this men angle and like just adding more of a social element to it. A very little but
Yeah.
not, which I think is a really good way to look at the movie. And like, I think honestly, that's how I kind of viewed it. You know, like now that you're like, I'm kind of thinking that there's two sides to me. This is why being a film fan and like being on the internet is so crazy because you get so many different perspectives,
I know.
right?
Yeah.
Because I can
Right.
agree with this idea of it being half baked. If this is going for, I don't even know if this is really going
Yeah.
for that. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
Um,
Oh, that gets so crazy, right?
so it's like the intention of it is kind of in the air, which like it could be an issue and could not be. But at the end of the day, this is a really creepy, fun like crazy horror movie with these really insane imagery that sparks discussion. And that's all I can really ask for, you know, in this day and age in 2022 where everything is like there's right wing media and then there's left wing media. You know, it's like so like it's like having something that actually sparks a discussion that we just had is like, you know, what art should be and what it can be, you know.
Right. And it makes me think, I've been thinking about this quote a lot ever since you sent it to me. That's the Ethan Hawke thing that went
Yeah.
viral, which he was talking about. And I just really, the more I'm just the type of person that I really agree with that. I just like watching movies and having experience, finding movies that really have a real connection with me, like
Yeah.
really like hit me and do something for me. Um, and really, it's frustrating because my experience of film school, which we went to the same film school, and I think we had a
We
similar
did?
experience at this same film school, but was this sort of frustrating thing that would happen where you might come forward and like a movie, and there'd be a lot of students who would
Yeah,
make these
right,
sort of
right.
frustrating arguments about why like it's
Yeah.
not good or what's a problem
You
about
mean
this movie.
regurgitating things that they saw on the internet? Continue.
Exactly. Basically
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically that. And it's frustrating because that's kind of the situation I feel like we're kind of in with this, where it's not as stupid as some of the stuff we heard
No,
in
I
film
don't. I
school.
haven't even like. You know what sucks? Like, I don't even know if like that's the criticism. Like,
Right. No,
you
that's the
know,
other
like
thing. We're just
I
imagining
could
it.
see. I think I might have saw one TikTok or something that was like talking about that. You know, so
Yeah.
I might have like seen one thing, but I don't know if like that's really what's going on here. I think so though. You know,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
already kind of you know
And I think at the end of the day, like it's going to just be a thing that just really needs time to sort of for the world to sort of gestate on and get through
totally.
this initial, because most movies that are like I think very good, unless they're an instant classic that just
Yeah,
hits in
right.
that special kind of way, like a lot of movies that are
Which
weirder
is
like
also
this.
kind of insane too, like the idea of an instant classic. It's like what?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
It could be wrong.
right. Right. But films like this I think need to go through like this period of like just a lot of people hate
Yeah,
them, because the other thing with
yeah.
movies
This
like
is a
this,
wild movie.
like
This is you
this
gotta
is
chew on it.
like this is akin to Under the Skin, and the first time I saw
Oh
Under the
yeah.
Skin I wouldn't say I loved it.
No, I definitely gonna
I
definitely not.
watched it and I had the experience where it's like I hated that, and then
Yeah,
like throughout the week it like it stuck with me, and
Yeah.
like, and it
Yeah.
held
Yeah.
with me. And
Yeah.
now I know that sort of like that experience, I've recognized that that feeling that I thought was
Right.
like I didn't like that is now like I'm
Yeah.
gestating.
Yeah. I
I'm
know that
working
about
with
you.
this.
I mean, I think that's the idea of like, it's just like, if the film, it's hard to, because when a film is like, there's something that like asks you to like engage with it and asks you to like bring your own ideas into it,
Yeah.
it can be frustrating, because
Yeah.
it's like, it's work. Not a lot of movies like do that, right? Where it's like,
Mm.
that's why art cinema is so fascinating, because they want you to, and why it's so divisive. A lot of art, when a big art film like this comes out, that with this big budget and a lot of people are seeing it, like, it's gonna be divisive. Like something like It Comes at Night, a lot of A24 stuff that they put
Hmm.
in theatrical releases have like the funniest responses ever, because they're like, like normal horror audience members go see it and they have no idea. They're like, what the fuck? Like, I thought I was just gonna see like a fun witch movie, but instead I got like
Yeah.
this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah.
like, neither horror nor are there. I'm not saying like those audiences are morons or anything. I'm just saying like there's different audiences. So like, um it makes sense that you would have those reactions to a movie like that. And like, you're not alone. I think a lot of people have that. Like, the people who like watch Cannes Film Festival stuff, and like, they're like they're like, you have to be knowing what you're getting into, like,
Yeah.
you're like, just me explaining to you like the image. Like, okay, 5 years ago, I would, if I saw this movie and I saw the birthing scene,
Yeah.
I would be like, I don't know. Not only do I not know this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life, but I'm just, but because I watched so many art films and have engaged with like cinema other than Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom,
Yeah.
like, which is a great movie, but like, I'm trained myself on how I enjoy watching movies. Like, I like seeing imagery that make me think of thematic things and make me think of. I have buddies who like look at me weird when sometimes when we go see like an art film, or a film that's like, not, Avengers or something,
Yeah.
where I the way that I discuss it is more of like a thematic, and you probably know this about me, it's like more
Hmm.
about like the themes of it, like what it is trying to like say, because that's what, like, how I view experiences, and like, sure, there's obviously things that are like, this is a ride. Enjoy the fucking ride.
Hmm.
You're not gonna get a lot out of this in terms of like, philosophically, But when I love movies like Ned and like these incredible movies and um everything everywhere all at once, that are basically genre films that are able to blend like these thematic things within a fun ride in like a genre film. That's like, to me, what really excites me about movies, and the movies that I want to write, the movies that I want to make,
Yeah.
are things that on the surface look like a genre film, and that they are a genre film. Like, this is a slasher film, really, what you said, but obviously there's a lot more going on here,
Yeah.
love it or hate it, but there's a lot more going on here,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. It's so true. I think that's really good. I think the other thing about this film, in my personal experience with it, that I don't know if I'm just like at this point so indoctrinated with Marvel, but I used to have the experience with films like this where it was divisive and it had like
yeah,
this mixed reaction where I was frustrated that
yeah,
people didn't like the good shit, as I would describe it. Because
oh yeah,
this is like
no,
my favorite type of stuff versus like
yeah,
stuff that's more conventional and things like
yeah,
that.
right,
And I still, I have like frustration about it because it's such my preference. It's hard for me to imagine. Like, it's hard for me to understand why everyone doesn't love it because it's such a
sure, yeah,
meaningful experience for me.
yeah.
But now, after I saw this, and like, I'm not as bothered by,
I've had those feelings too, for
but
sure.
I'm so I've grown to a place where I'm so not as bothered by people not
Yeah,
liking this as much as me. And to me, what I really thought about after I got out of that theater is was I was just so grateful for the diversity of it. You know, it's just like, it's not
Yeah.
that I want Marvel films to go away. It's just that
Yeah.
I watched Doctor Strange was in the theater right next to me. That's
Right.
what I want. I just want a movie like this
Sure.
next to Doctor Strange every time.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. Yeah. Diversity, I think, is like, I mean, I think I'm gonna go to. I'm seeing Top Gun tomorrow, and I can't be more excited. You
Yeah.
know, and it's a movie for the dads. You know, it's for the fucking 50-year-olds in the world. You know, and this movie's in theaters, and we have Sonic 2 for the kids. You know, like diversity is like that's something that was around when I was a kid. You know, like when I was a kid, when in the 2000s, when you went to go see a movie, there were options. You know, it was
Mhm.
like there's the studio comedy, there's the action movie, there's the you know the horror movie. That's when movies are thriving. But
Yeah.
now we're in a really weird time where it's like we have an A24 movie, probably like a art film, a superhero movie, possibly two superhero movies, and like some really bad animated movie that's not
Yeah.
made by Pixar or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Just some
That's it.
literal trash,
Yeah,
like in the
that's it.
garbage can
So
trash.
like
Yeah.
there's not I think there's not also not as many movies in theaters anymore. Um
It's also making me think about, I'm pretty sure you sent me this video where it was of this guy that was talking about how he thinks that movie theaters would do well if they made an
oh the
investment
James
back in.
Gray. The
Yes,
James Gray, yeah.
what he was talking about. And I want to connect that to what you just said about like 5 years ago having a different response to this kind of movie, which I
Yeah.
think is the
Well it's
problem
also
with.
older.
Right.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that watching these things need practice. And when it's been so
Yeah.
removed from like something that to
Oh
do,
yeah,
like
that's right. I thought
people
that was a
don't
really good point. Yeah.
people no longer have the practice or the openness to going and
Yes.
exploring this type of
That
stuff.
is
So,
so real, dude. Holy
and
shit, dude.
that's like a really
I thought he was speaking the gospel when he said that. I was
I
like,
did
oh
too.
my
I thought
god.
that was so genius and so important to be
Yeah,
thinking about again, about how like movies like this that don't necessarily succeed in a monetary sense
yeah,
do a really important thing for our culture, you know, and our just
yeah.
our development as people, you know.
Right.
Even if you don't, not that you have to grow to like this, that like that's like a
No, no,
primitive
no,
way
no,
of thinking about
no,
it.
no,
Like
no,
the
no.
best the thing what you
Yeah,
have to do is eventually learn to like these
yeah.
films because this is high art.
There's
It's
a
like that's
guy.
no.
People getting burned out of landslide. You might not like it.
But it's that process of going through it and making the decision, like I hate that, like what you said, that's bullshit, but at least you
Yes,
made that decision.
yes,
That's great.
yeah.
That's an authentic
Right.
thing, because when you come out of Doctor Strange or a lot of these Marvel movies, it's just kind of like cool
Okay.
and you go
Yeah.
on with your day.
Right.
Eh,
Yeah.
which
Exactly.
is, it's
Right.
not bad, but we need the other shit too. We need to be
Yeah. You
challenged.
need to be challenged. Yeah. Right. And like now it's just like content. And we talked about this before, but like the content being so like there's so much content out there that like people it's just easy to find the comfort stuff.
Yeah.
You don't take risks anymore,
And it's
which
hard
is
to make an
really
argument
sad.
about why, like, with that was very symbolic to me to have Doctor Strange right next to Men. And it's like, why
Yeah.
go here instead of Doctor Strange? That's a very hard argument to make. For me
Yeah.
personally,
Yeah. I
I
don't really know.
100% know why. But if
Yeah.
you're not like me and you don't like movies like this, how can I convince you? I don't
No,
know.
you can't. That's the
I
problem.
can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm just happy that like A24. I mean, they have like I don't know. They have a big enough audience that they're able to put these movies in theaters. Same with like Neon. The fact that I'm gonna go see a new David Cronenberg movie in
Yeah.
theaters amongst is like the best thing I've ever.
Awesome.
You know what I mean?
So
That's
awesome.
incredible. Um, and like I think it's in theaters. I'm pretty sure. I
Yeah.
mean, in this day and age where the Coen Brothers movie is not in theaters, the Scorsese movie is not in theaters, it's a
Yeah.
weird time. Getting a film in theaters by a master filmmaker like David Cronenberg, it's um, it's a treat. It's a treat. Um, and it just sucks that in the '90s it was like common practice.
Right.
But now it's like it's rare. So
Right. We're having to make that really interesting transition where like cuz in the 90s it was the financially correct thing to do, you know,
Yeah,
like to make the Steven Spielberg film because it's Steven Spielberg.
of course.
But
Yeah,
but now what's financially what sells is the Marvel label and
man
the
and kites.
franchise, the franchises that are along
Yeah,
with it, the things that are sort of familiar, just because that's just what sells, which
I
is
mean,
always how it's been. But
literally in 2 weeks, the new Jurassic World comes out, which you see in the trailer is just another bullshit legacy movie. I mean, of course they brought Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill, and Laura Dern back because this movie sucked dick, so might as well bring the
yeah,
original
what else are
cast
we
and
gonna
have
do?
people remind them of the fucking good movie. I mean, like, put effort in. Jesus Christ. How about you make a good movie and not rely on the better fucking movie? It's
Yeah.
insane. It's insane shit that's happening right now.
And it'll be interesting to see if we need to wait for like in that like, my favorite story to hear about like the rise of like these 70 filmmakers like Coppola and George
Yeah,
Lucas and all of them, where it kind of happened because movies were in a shit place and they
right.
just kind of like did a shotgun blast to say
Yeah.
make whatever you want, see what sticks.
Well, the
And
scary
then
part is movies aren't really in a shit place. They're making money,
I know, and that's
you
the thing
know?
that's like,
Yeah,
are we gonna have to wait until it gets really shit, like more shit than this?
yeah,
Which is it shit? I don't know, like to a lot of people. Or are we
yeah,
gonna have this new thing where it's gonna trickle in? Which is why I'm so grateful for this movie. I'm
yeah,
so
totally. Yeah.
grateful
But
and
this is in
refreshed and
theaters
energized by it.
nationwide.
Yeah. And A24 is just, so glad that they're sticking it out because they're doing some, I just
Yeah,
think it's really important to have films like this on there. So
absolutely.
important.
It really is. And like, it's love it or hate it, like I said, it's important that this is in theaters. And like, you know, as horror fans, also like, this is a really awesome horror movie. I can't remember the last time I saw a really fun horror movie in theaters. It's been a while. Trying to think like
I can't remember
last
one.
horror movie I saw in theaters.
That wasn't like I mean Scream was the last one I saw,
Yeah,
but
that's like a fun,
it's yeah, it's like a comedy horror
popcorn
film.
movie.
Yeah, popcorn movies. That's a good description.
Um, yeah, I mean that must have been like the last. I mean, so it's great to see something like this that truly disturbed me, in a
Yeah,
loud
yeah,
moving theater. We should probably end because we could talk forever, but
yeah.
um, I thought this was a really interesting podcast. I think this is a really interesting movie to talk about. If you're listening to this and you've seen it and you know who I am, and you have my phone number,
Yeah, let us know what
or
you think.
message us on Instagram or
Yeah.
Twitter or whatever,
Thick
YouTube
and butter.
comments. Let me know what you think of it. I want to know what people thought of this movie if you've seen it. This is the type of movie that, I want to hear every opinion, that someone has that I know and seen this movie because I think that this is just open to discussion, and
Absolutely.
I love discussing movies. Obviously, that's
Definitely
another
some of your
podcast.
opinions, as you can predict, will probably make me mad once I hear them, but I still want to hear them.
I'm at this point where like I don't even like it probably won't even make me mad. Just fucking just tell me, like I get it,
Yeah.
this isn't like you know um
Hey, well, I'll say this. I'm not going to spit on your face or anything like that, but it's going to cause, it's like, I'm going to get probably a visceral reaction to stuff because that's just how I am. I'm like
I
a
know
no
we might have
metal
to change that
sliders.
about you.
I
I have to
just,
start working on that.
I'm just fiery, man.
I know, dude. I'm like that. I mean, I could be like that too. Obviously, me, but
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to lower that down.
Yeah.
Because I just people have different perspectives and people have different, outlooks on life. They're
Well,
not going to enjoy a movie where someone gets birthed out of the fucking mangina.
yeah, let's close about how to deal with your own emotions. So the things I've been like learning about is with like dealing with this response and sort of like what I was talking about earlier, like the anger that would come with like,
Yeah,
why don't people like this? Now I've really learned to process about um, like, like it's just me, like it's just my own emotions I'm dealing with. That's all
yeah,
I
and
have to
also
deal
like,
with.
yeah,
I don't have to be mad at people.
yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
and as soon as like I kind of got that in my head, it helps you so
And
much
you're
about it's like,
also
I don't
who
need
are
to
you
fight
mad at?
you. That who am I mad at? Like, who am I
Yeah,
mad at? It's
right.
just like, and it's just like you have your opinions and I'll have mine. because I think the
Yeah, it's a good
problem,
thing to recognize.
yeah, and that the problem that it comes from, which I think this is, similarly to the themes of what a lot of toxic masculinity is
Yeah,
that when you have something that like in that situation, the reason that I would react like that is because I would feel like my opinions would not be valid unless someone
yeah,
else shared them with
it's your
me.
ego.
Yeah, and it's an
Yeah.
insecurity
I
of
don't even
my
think it's
ego
even a
type of thing.
masculine thing. That's just a human thing. That's just like
Yeah, totally human.
um that's why I like this the idea of like toxic masculinity is kind of like I don't know much about the actual term, but it is
Mhm.
a little absurd to me because it just does sound like asshole shit. It's just like okay, so like what if a woman does the same thing? Is that different? Like why is this
Yeah.
gendered? You know? So like just the idea of like why does this have to be gender specific? You know, like it's just assholes. Like don't be an asshole. Like it's just like don't be manipulative, don't do these things. But when you get into the gender norms and shit, that's where it comes from. I think it's like the societal stuff that
Yeah.
people don't realize. That are related to men and women. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um, no, I think that's a really good point. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just like I I would feel like in high school and stuff, I would feel so like angry, if someone didn't like something, and it's just like quickly realize like, oh yeah, that's probably um lashing out against like what like I'm not confident in myself and like what I'm
Mhm.
able to express about a movie. Is I'm kind of like gotten over that thankfully and starting to where I don't really like unless someone says something like, I mean, even if like someone says something so absurd about a movie that is just so factually incorrect, and you're trying to tell me it's happened a lot in my life where someone like I have friends and people in my life that are very like I love, but that are very like opinionated,
Mhm.
and like something that I one of the reasons why I start this is like a therapy session. One of the reasons why I started this is just a friend to friend now. But the idea, the reason that we started the podcast is to have because we want to discuss things. We want to
Mhm.
like, you didn't like this, I love this. Let's talk about it.
Mhm.
Like that's discussion is really the basis of understanding. And like I think a lot of people in my life, especially my friends and stuff, were like not I wanted to discuss things, and I get it. Like a lot of people don't want to discuss art, like that's not your thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is my thing, and I like doing that. So, like, um, it does feel frustrating when someone like has an opinion that is just factually incorrect, and you know that it's incorrect because you're a crazy person, and you just do research, and you know a lot of this thing, and so it's frustrating when you have a discussion with somebody who is so who just doesn't have the knowledge because it's not their thing, or not
Yeah.
saying that if you don't have to have the knowledge of the movie to have an opinion, but like it's frustrating sometimes when there's you hear an opinion and you're like, that is just so it's just not like it's just a bad argument almost, and like they won't hear you out because it's a movie.
Yeah.
It's like it's just
Yeah.
a movie, man. It's like dude, like but I mean you don't realize that this is like my passion, and you're like hurting my feelings when you say
Yeah.
things that are like incorrect. I'm more talking about like things that are just like coming out of your ass and you just have no idea what you're talking about. But like there's a lot of that, so but I'm kind of learned now that it's just like I kind of brush it off on these things. Not a thing, whatever. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
like
that's that.
I remember when the Lighthouse came out. I'll never forget this. Never in a million years. Like it was the end of the year, and so I went home for Christmas break or whatever, and people were like, you know, um, talking about their favorite movies of the year or whatever. I don't know. I think they were asking me about it more
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, the Lighthouse. Like, I fucking love the Lighthouse, And like, it was just like, I don't know. I was like being judged because I liked this crazy movie where this guy had sex with a mermaid.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what? Like, that's ridiculous. So I don't. I don't enjoy people like that. And I think that's just people like getting younger or old, like younger people, because it's just like not understanding other perspectives and things that people like other things, like it's not your thing, like I'm just kind of going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to recommend this movie to you because I know it's not your thing, it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like it's fine,
And
like
and
whatever.
and the other thing
I'm going to
about
enjoy
that,
it by myself now.
yeah, and that's such a good process, and it's really relevant to this type of movie
Yeah.
because of the
Oh yeah.
divisive nature of it.
Oh
And the
yeah.
other factor about that, especially like bringing forward or liking or like this having this kind of argument, one thing is like having to let go and of your own insecurities and just like accepting what you like and just being confident in
Yeah.
yourself. But the other thing is that when you address this to certain people, and it took me a while to realize this, it's like, oh, I'm making them anxious. Like I'm making them very uncomfortable by probing them on this.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
it's not
Exactly.
really
Right.
something that they're interested
Yeah. I don't
in,
do that
like,
anymore.
and like doing that. So when I get that feedback from them, it's like, oh, okay, I'll stop because it's just like, we don't need
Yeah.
to
I
do
don't. I don't
this.
do that
I'll
anymore.
talk to Alex about it because like we don't need to get
Exactly.
mad about this.
Yeah.
It's
I
like
don't. I
that's
don't do that anymore.
and
I
it's
used to be able to like I used to like I don't know try to like press them on things. Like I think what you mean by that is like challenging their argument,
absolutely,
and it's
yeah,
like dude, like they don't even know what they're saying,
right.
or they don't even know. Like why would I try to argue with somebody when they? It's like arguing with like a baby. You know what I mean? Sometimes where it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
because sometimes it's literally like, and I'm not. This is not a bad thing or anything. This is just like me. This is a problem with me. Where it's like if you talk about someone with basic knowledge of like Steven Spielberg, I've seen almost every movie he's directed.
yeah.
I have more just like examples, or like
Yeah.
knowledge of his movies. And if you've only seen the Indiana Jones trilogy, I'm not gonna argue with you know what I mean. I'm just not because like it's just like this is stupid.
Well,
It's a dumb argument. It's
it's
just
like
a
calling George Miller a bad director because you don't like Babe or you don't like Happy
R-
Feet or something like that.
Exactly. It really is like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
it's
I
like
don't like Babe, therefore I'm never gonna watch the Mad Max movies, which I don't think anybody's ever had an opinion ever.
but
But
sometimes you come across crazy shit that
sure,
people will
yeah,
say
yeah,
like that. Not
yeah,
quite that extreme, but along those
yeah,
lines that you're
yeah.
like, what?
Or I hate Babe. What are you, a psycho? Have you ever seen Babe?
A long time ago.
I used to watch it. I had a VHS of Babe, and I used to watch it like all the time.
That's
I
sick.
should rewatch it at some point. I remember being completely charmed by it when I was a little kid.
Well, let's
But
balance out this scary movie, this scary men movie with Babe next week. We're talking doing a Babe
yeah, we'll
review.
do the big double feature.
Babe, and Babe 2. What is
Big
Babe
Pig in the
2?
City,
Big Pig. It is Big Pig in the City. I was gonna
directed
make a
by
joke
George
about
Miller,
that.
who directed
One
that
and
one,
two.
who
One.
produced the first one, and then directed the
Oh.
second one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
The
that.
second one is batshit insane. He like goes to New York and he like meets like I just remember this one scene where he like goes like the sewer and like meets like these like rats
Uh-huh.
and like it's like gangster rats and like I think there's like a motorcycle gang of like ducks at one point. It's a really weird movie. Um, anyway, this is I don't know how we're gonna edit if we're gonna edit this at all,
Yeah, I
but
know. We kind of went all
it
over the
turned
place.
into a therapy session.
But
I
that's the
forgot we
thing
were doing a podcast.
that's the cool thing about movies like this is that
Yeah,
they sort
exactly.
of open up this kind of
Yeah,
self-discovery and
totally.
reflection. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool. So I guess our closing statement is tell us what you think about Men and
Please do.
what
Yeah.
you think about Babe Pig in the City.
Yeah, please yeah, good call. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for listening. Like another therapy session. Um, my name's Alex.
My name is Jesse
Okay, Thicc.
and Butter.
Signing off. Bye bye.
Bye.